What if the key to unlocking all of your success is locked up into one breakthrough moment? I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this today, man.
Yeah,
and I want to introduce, you to everybody here. But, what we do on this podcast is we want to talk about these moments in life where you've had the opportunity to break through. And these breakthrough moments happen in life where it catapults you to the next level.
Yep.
And I've watched you over the last several years, and I feel like we're right in the middle of like the craziest breakthrough ever. You have become the CEO of your own company, LinkSpot. You have been attached to one of the biggest masterminds that I've seen with Forward. You're a loan officer. You're a massive content producer, content creator. You have 101,000 followers on Instagram. Bro, you are breaking out like I've never seen anybody. So I'm super fortunate to finally be sitting down with you.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this, brother.
Dude, I'm so stoked, man. This is long overdue. I feel like every time me and you have conversations, the stuff comes from it is just pure gold.
Yeah,
and so
man.
the fact that we get to record one now, finally, dude, I've been dying to be on this. I'm excited.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'll tell the audience a story. So about a year ago, it was right around a year ago, I was at the breakthrough event, the mastermind.
Forward.
At the Forward.
I love the plug there, though.
Right? The breakthrough event. Yeah, that was better. I was at the Forward event, and there was a really cool mastermind that we were doing with Chris Do.
Yep.
And they pushed us out to go tell our story, and we were talking about our shadow selves and something that we're really ashamed of, and how do we make that our superpower? Yep. And anytime I'm in one of these, I'm like, man, I'm not that creative. I can't really think about it. And then you came and sat next to me. I was like, please, I do not want to be partnered with this guy right now, because I was really in my head about the entire event and being there.
Yeah.
And we started talking, man. And it was such an emotional story that you pulled out of me, talking about how I had just stopped drinking and like just being at that event was super uncomfortable.
Yep.
You were very, very I didn't know what to think of you at the time, because you and I had never spent, time talking as on a deeper level.
Right.
But I realized how easy you were to talk to, and I realized why you're so successful at what you do, because there's this piece of authenticity that not only do you lead from, but you're able to pull out of other people. And that's truly a superpower that you have. And so, tell me a little bit about that, man. Like, how did you realize that authenticity was the key to, pulling brand out of the people that you're helping?
Dude, so super interesting, because that same interaction that we had, and for context, that story that Chris is talking about, the goal was we share something about ourselves. And it was the shadow word, right? And we kind of had to dig deep of like, what's a word that can encapsulate some shadow? And Chris Do was kind of pushing us to dig into some dark stuff, right? He wanted you to look at trauma and look at hard things and talk about something that was hard to talk about. And personally, I've always had this kind of thought of like, I haven't been through anything that hard. Like, my life's pretty good. And I've had these people of like, we all have trauma. I'm like, I don't. I'm sorry. I lived a good life. I'm sorry. And just the way Chris does it, and it was a combination of these exercises. And at the time, one of them was like, I don't know if you remember this part, look at the person and make assumptions about them based on they look.
I remember I made some assumptions about you, because I was like, I think you came from a lot of money.
Yes.
And you were like, bro, I didn't come from a lot of money.
Dude, the amazing part of that too was when I asked why you thought that, it was the exact same reason I thought you didn't come from money.
Yeah.
So we both had it was our watches.
Oh,
And it was so your love of watches was something that I'm like, man, the way you talk about them and the way you value them makes me think it's someone who didn't come from money. And because I had nice watches, that was the thing that made you think I did.
So funny. What a parallel.
Yeah, it was so funny. Two things of how we got into it. But we did that exercise, which it as simple as that seemed, it was weird because the focus was just on you, right? Like, you were looking at me, whether the assumption was right or wrong, you were making an assumption about me based on something you saw. And when you feel really seen like that, it's an interesting feeling. And so I'm like, man, he's looking at me because of these things, and he's making this read, and this person sees me. And so I think that exercise, prior to the one of digging into like what's your shadow word, I think the combination led me to where that was the first time that I had this thing of like, man, I think my word's overlooked. And I think that because of the way that I was raised, I was the youngest in a family of two people that are extreme overachievers. My brother was one of the best athletes in the country, arguably the world. He has 2 world titles, one in wrestling, one in motocross, full ride football scholarship, backflips of wakeboard, first time wakeboarding. Like, he's good at everything. And then my sister, same thing, 13 varsity letters, one of the most like athletically accomplished people to come out of our high school, in a large high school in Reno. And then there was me, the youngest. And so,
man, those are a lot of shadows to dig yourself out of. I mean, that's like a lot.
But what was so interesting was I never viewed it that way. And so it was that exercise that made me like, okay, I guess if I have to put a word in front of it, the word's overlooked, because every time I did something, it was always compared to what my siblings had done, never just on my own merit. So if I was the best player on the team, that was good, but I wasn't the best player in the country like my brother. So then I was always like coming in lower than what people expected of me. So it just felt like I was letting people down forever, and it felt like I was overlooked. And for me, the superpower that came for that, though, was I got really good at rooting for other people and wanting to see other people win, because I had no option. And so with my siblings, I started to feel so much like power from their success. I started to feel it as my own. Like I was more happy to see my siblings win than anybody. And that became a skill set that I just got really good at. I love seeing my friends win. I love seeing people I don't even know win. And something that seemed kind of like, I guess this, it seemed like maybe not a superpower at the time has become one. And that's what led to the part of pulling authenticity out of people, to tie this full circle.
So good, though.
Is that I want to see people achieve what they want to achieve. And the more conversations I have with people, and the ability to have these conversations that I've had for the last 5 years, made me realize that everybody wants to be themselves, and they have these things that make them amazing and unique, and they're afraid to share with the world for some reason.
Oh, terrified. I mean, I was one of them. I mean, without you, like giving me the avenue to open me up and say it's okay and share that emotion with me, I don't think I would have ever done it and posted it and, and there are people today that come up to me that know that side of my life from that one post that I would, that I had no idea touched them in some way.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have ever done it had you and I not done that. But that's the beauty of your skill set, because we live in a hater society. And to have cheerleaders in the world that are helping you get your voice heard and helping you be seen is truly one of the greatest gifts that I think you had based on your upbringing. And so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that, man. It was awesome to see, because I had known you for a few years prior to that, but I didn't really know you till that day.
Yeah.
And that's the power of like when you start sharing yourself, you create real connection, not surface level ones.
Yeah.
And you have the ability to do that through mediums like social media, which people don't really realize. Share a little bit of yourself, create connection. Connections create opportunities. Opportunities create money. Opportunities create growth, right? Like at the source of everything you want in life, it typically comes back to sharing the piece of yourself that you're hiding.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So I want to kick this off with your breakthrough moment. And we can edit this part out, Trevor. But the reason I was stumbling earlier when we were doing this is because it hit me that you're 100% living your breakthrough moment right now, bro.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I said, we can edit this out. But if you want to talk that, that's it. But let's start with your breakthrough moment. Was there a specific experience where you realized that this was going to be your path to success?
I think there's been several, right? I wish there was just this one thing that happened that I can tell you was like this major catalyst, but there have been a few moments in my life where I'm like, this is a moment to where things become really clear to me. And I think all of us have had that. And that's like the thing that you search for and want, right? It's just like those moments of absolute clarity where everything finally starts to make sense. And one of them was earlier on in my career. I got into lending 2017. I was working for this branch manager who's an amazing dude, really, really good at doing loans. And I was working for him for a couple years, and I was having one of those days where I'm like, man, everything seems hard right now. I'm getting shopped. I'm getting yelled at. Like, this job is kind of hard. And I was looking at this branch manager who was like, if I do everything right, eventually I get to his status, right? What he's doing, have his relationships, have his team, I get his workflow. Yeah. Like, okay, if I do everything right, this is where I'm going to end up. And so I'm having a terrible day, and I go into his office to try and get some guidance, and I walk into him just getting absolutely ripped by a borrower. And I'm like, whoa, if I do everything right for the next 30 years, I'm going to be in the exact same place I'm at right now. And so that was one of those like breakthrough aha moments of like, I don't want to be exactly where I'm at right now 30 years from now. So what can I do to put myself on a different trajectory? And it wasn't necessarily just the occupation. It wasn't like, oh, stop being a lender. It was, I want to do things in a different way.
Yeah.
And so that's what started that trajectory of like, hey, I'm going to start making videos and I'm going to do digital marketing and I'm going to start building a brand. And these are things that if lending goes away still are valuable and are still applicable. And that's what completely changed the way that I was currently doing business and led to all these opportunities, being able to join Neil and help build forward and be a part of such an amazing company and meet people like you. And so that was kind of the first huge breakthrough moment for me that kind of led me to the last 5 years, and to your point, kind of the second one, which I'm at now.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you think about it, you know, sometimes we have this vision of success. It's like, I want to be like that guy.
Yep.
Or I want to be like what they're doing, only to realize that that could be a flawed, you know, approach. But then you get to that and you realize, wait, there's something more.
Yeah.
And there's something beyond that. And I think, you know, like you and I were talking about, I think that that's part of our growing up. And, you know, these breakthrough moments, as scary as they are, you know, lead us to the next big thing. And one of the things that I talk about with breakthrough is it's not necessarily about the flex of I made it, because we're all like never like, I'm going to be 50, bro. And I still don't feel like I made it. Right. But when you think about those moments of breakthrough, it's right before that happened. There's a feeling you have in it's like a pit in your stomach where you're just empty. And you're like, I'm tired of not being seen. I'm tired of not being heard. I'm tired of like, you know, whatever it is, but you're pissed off.
Yeah.
And so for every breakthrough moment, there's a breakdown.
Yeah.
What do you think was your biggest breakdown moment before you hit that next level?
I think, dude, I love the way you just broke that. I actually got chills from your breakdown of what these are, because we've been through these, and when we do them, it's something really, really cool when you have those moments, and it's fear. That's what it is, right? So you get scared. It's really, have you ever gone cliff jumping, like jumped off a cliff into water?
Never.
So the feeling
actually,
of it,
yes, I have.
Okay.
I have.
Whether it's
And,
big or
yes,
small, just
yes,
the feeling
I
of
have,
jumping
yes.
off something. That feeling of fear is peaked right before you leap. And then once you leap, it becomes fun because that thing's behind you. And so those breakthrough moments are typically fear. And it's, what are you doing to get past that fear, right? And once you decide, and it's really bravery is what breakthrough is. It's the bravery to get past that fear that you had. So I don't know that I necessarily had a breakdown, but I was being stuck where I was because of the fear to try something different, the fear of the unknown, right? So even looking at my old manager of like, this is where I'm going to be 30 years from now, it was a good path. He made good money. He had decent work-life balance. So for me to try and say I want something different was scary, because different was unknown.
It was unknown.
And so that is when you reach that pinnacle of like, I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. And you do it. And that's when the breakthrough happens, right? Amazing. When you're standing on the edge of the cliff, and that's when the fear cannot be like, you're walking up there and you're scared. You're getting closer to the edge. You're getting more scared. The moment right before is when you're at your peak fear. And that's when you do it anyways. And then that's when you get this amazing experience.
Crazy. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's funny you say that, because the last time that if I can remember the cliff jump that I did, I remember thinking immediately afterwards, like, I have kids.
Yeah.
I can't be effing around with this. Like, what was I thinking, you know? But it's that moment, it was like, do or die, man.
Yeah.
You're not walking back down.
Yeah.
Like, walking down is shameful.
Yeah.
So I think for you, you know, one of the things that you did differently than most people was you leveled up your marketing. And I don't want to oversimplify your breakthrough moment, but I've heard you talk about the power of hitting the record button. I've heard you talk about how, you know, to be authentic in video, but would you say that the one single most important thing that was life-changing for you in your business was figuring out how to be an amazing content creator that you are?
Yeah, it was, figuring it out was definitely a piece of it, but I think the bigger piece was just giving myself permission to do the thing I wanted to do. And so I wanted to make videos. And so I did. And when I finally did it, I started to see these results. And so, yeah, I think like the oversimplification of that breakthrough moment was just giving myself permission to do the thing I already wanted to do. And I feel like so many of us are in that situation where we know what we want to do. And Chris Doe, who's a buddy of both of ours, I was speaking at an event with him, and during this Q&A session, someone's asking him a question. And they're like, should I do this or this? I have this option. And he looks at them and he goes, typically when people ask me questions like this, they're either asking for permission to do the thing they want to do or permission to not do the thing they don't want to do. Is this one of those moments? And she just goes, yes. And he goes, okay. And then that was the whole exchange. So it's basically, you know the answer to the question you're asking. You just want somebody else to validate it. And the best validation is when you just execute on the thing that you want to do. And so that created this snowball. I made a video. I thought it was going to work. It did. I made another video. I thought people would like it. They did. I changed the way I formatted it because I thought it would land better, and it did. And I'm like, this is really cool. I'm doing the things I want to do.
Was it like a video game moment, like where you're just like strategizing, trying this, trying that, like, and and everything you're doing is like one level up, and it just you're getting the feedback and the content that you wanted to put out?
Yeah, 100%. It felt like that montage of like, dude, let's try this. It worked. But there were definitely the failures in the way. It wasn't like everything I did worked, but I just kept trying them. So let's try this. It didn't work. Cool. Change it. Go back to the other one. Reiterate. Like look at what's working and become a student of it. And I think just because I was so passionate about making videos and making content and trying to make it as good as I possibly can, that it did become a game to me where even if I failed, I got a chance to do that level again. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's do it again.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean like, oh, I failed, I'm done, I close the game and I exit. Like, how many times have we played video games growing up where it's like, you keep dying, you just keep doing the level.
Keep doing it,
and you try a different lane and then you do it and it works and you're like, yes. And then you're on the next level and then you get excited again. And so that was the kind of what that felt like in that moment, was like just starting was the hardest part. And once I started, it became really fun, and then you start to get momentum, and that momentum starts rolling and things just start clicking.
But people get stuck on level one. And I think most people that are in the business have at some point even tried a video.
Yeah.
And they didn't take off the way that they wanted it to, or they didn't get the leads that they wanted to. And this is like created an entire path of you being able to coach people on how to get better at it. But what do you think is a single thing that keeps people stuck at level one?
Themselves. They're so critical, and they put a unrealistic bar on what they expect to get immediately. And it's weird because we don't do this with anything else. We know things take time and we know you need to practice, but for some reason in the world of like specifically with creating content, people expect to be good out of the gate because it's just talking, and we all talk.
Well, yeah, but I'm super good at mortgages, so why wouldn't I be good at this?
Yeah. Right? I know how to speak because I'm a human being, and I'm good at mortgages, so I need to make content. That content needs to be amazing because all I'm doing is speaking about mortgages. And it's easier on paper versus if I'm like, hey, let's go play golf. You're like, I'm going to be really gracious with myself because I've never golfed, right? And so you got to learn how to swing, and it's okay if you suck, where we don't give ourselves the same grace with video because we're like, it's just talking about the thing I'm already good at. So if I don't succeed in that, something's wrong and I'm going to stop. And so I think the one piece of advice that will make you become a better content creator and give you that ability to start is be kind to yourself and know that what you're doing is actually difficult.
It is difficult.
And give yourself some grace. No one was good at it. Like it's so easy too to look online and find any creator you love, any person making content. Look at their early stuff. They were not good like they are now.
Do you have all your stuff, or do you have a, like, if you go back to your Instagram all the way to the bottom, do you see the evolution of your change?
For sure.
Did you keep them there as a time capsule?
Yeah, and the one thing that won't be as won't show the journey as clear on there is there was a phase where I was making YouTube videos back in high school. I was making videos online before I got into lending. So I already had gotten a lot of the really bad ones aren't going to be on my Instagram because it was pre, you know, this phase of my life. But even once I got into these, the amount I progressed, but I didn't come into it as cold as people shooting a video for the very first time.
Agreed. I think that one of the things that you and I have talked about and that you've helped me with in like just our personal coaching, I'll call you and ask you, you know, like, hey man, I did this video, what do you think? And you'll start asking me a series of questions that's ultimately pulling out of me a level of authenticity that I wasn't showing up with. How do you think authenticity impacts somebody's ability to create a brand and a brand that sticks?
Dude,
on a personal level? Like, you know, because everybody, you know, we were doing a mastermind earlier today with a group, and there was a person in there who talked nothing about mortgage, and it seemed to be like your favorite video of everybody's that we looked at because there was this authenticity around being a mother, or, you know, that there was a piece that felt just vulnerable that no one wants to lead with. And this person who never does videos led with, you know, that shadow self that we talk about. Why does that hit a different way?
It's really important if your goal is to create connection. And if your goal is to use social to grow business, then your goal is to use social to create connection. And so if you think about like the accounts you follow or the people you follow, not because you have to and not because of work, but the stuff that you actually enjoy, it's probably not somebody ramming a sales thing down your throat every day. So if we do mortgages, I don't think anybody just wants to hear about mortgages nonstop. We get it. You do mortgages, right? And so what was really cool with that example is she gave this story about being a single mom and going through divorce and being a parent to these 2 girls. Four girls.
Kids.
Oh, 4 kids. Okay. And she shares this story. And at the end of it, I said, what does it have to do with mortgages? And it's like, nothing. But then we came full circle because it has everything to do with mortgages.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with business because for someone to work with me, they need to create connection. To create connection, they need to know something about me. For them to know something about me, I need to tell them something about me. And so that video is the thing that's going to give her the connection to get a client. So that video has everything to do about mortgages. Just because she didn't say the interest rate and a loan program and have a CTA at the end does not mean it didn't have to do with mortgages. It had everything to do with it. We spend so much time trying to amplify authority through content that we forget to amplify connection, and connection's the piece that actually creates transactions.
Well, let's talk about that. So, people get stuck on level 1 because they're not, they quit too soon. 2, if they keep going, we were talking about it today, but like they become somebody different. They're not their authentic self. And those that become their authentic self see the path to creating something really great and getting real connection. How do you coach people to do that?
A lot of it just comes down to asking questions about what they want and who they are. And the limit to go from level 1, as we're calling it, to level 2, which is where you can be your authentic self, is fear. 100%.
It all goes back to fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being laughed at, fear of being,
being accepted.
It's the worst.
And the good news is most of that is an irrational fear. And once you do it, you find that out, but you don't find it out till after you do it. And so level 1, hit record and make the video. And I've had the pleasure of being able to coach thousands of people in mortgage and real estate over the last 5 years. And level 1 is easy for some people when they have the roadmap. So here's the words to say, Chris, now say them. And here's a script that you could talk about your business, say it. And then people do that because there's no risk in their eyes. And it's not that the video succeeds or fails. Like the risk isn't of the video failing. The risk is of not being accepted because it's not their script. So if people don't like the video, it's not on them. Where
Dude,
if you
that's
make
so true.
A script that's your own,
yeah,
and especially if you share something that's you, there's now the risk of people accepting or not liking or not engaging with something that was your own original thought, and that scares people.
No, that was me. I mean, like, really what you're saying is like, I got a part of the mastermind. I get the scripts, right? They give you, Neil will provide the scripts, or they're probably your scripts. Whatever the scripts come from, I would read them, and there was zero connection with that script and me. I don't even do loans, right? Like, so I don't even know why I'm doing this, but it was like, it was a muscle that, like, Fabio and I would have, time scheduled on Friday that we're going to do content. And so I literally would just grab those scripts, let's go line by line, and we're going to read them. And I would try to make an emotional connection to them, but you just can't if it's not yours.
Right.
But you're exactly right. It didn't go anywhere because there was no real connection. I thought I was, getting the mechanics in, but it wasn't until I really just said, wait, who am I? Who am I trying to help? What's my North Star? Like, what is it that I'm trying to create here? And does my content back into that? And that's really what you were helping me with. I did a video one day and I called you and I asked you for advice, and you just kept asking me the same question. Why are you doing this? What are you trying to tell the audience? What are you, and I hated the questioning because I was like, what it was doing, it was making me second guess why I even posted, like, okay, I'll take it down. Trevor,
you hated them.
But no, you were asking me so that I can get better at it. And I think that's what we have to do, is ask ourselves, like, really, what do we want to be known for? What are we really about? And then how do we create the content about? And that's hard for people.
Yeah.
And so, if I was starting off today, if I was just like, fresh and said, look, I know that I have to do marketing, what would you tell me to get started?
I think, and I mean, to keep it on the theme of what you were saying when we were doing that feedback, was I was asking you, like, what's the point of this video? That was the question I kept at. And to a point where I think I was even starting to frustrate you. Right?
Yeah, well, it's uncomfortable. It's like you're looking in a mirror and answering questions that, you might not have the answers to.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I was letting you down for not having them. Like, why are you shooting a video if you don't have the answer to these questions?
Yeah.
But it was a good exercise to go to. I mean, it really was.
It was awesome, and the outcome was great because I've seen a change in your videos since then. Because as simple as it sounds, like, what was the point of this video? And it has to have one, right? And is it to entertain? Is it to educate? Is it to create connection? Is it to create awareness of something? Like, what was the goal, if any? And I think a lot of people default into this, like, check the box marketing. We just check the box that we did it. And when we think about social media at its core is to be social. So if me and you walked up to a bar and you start talking to somebody, you probably have a point. It doesn't need to be like an end game, but like, no, this point's to break the ice. So, hey, where are you from? What are you doing? Like, there's a reason I'm asking you those things. Or I tell you a story. What's the reason for the story? Maybe it's to make you laugh or to create a connection or we're just being humans. So we don't need overthink that. I don't go to the bar like, hey, what's my goal? What's the outcome? What's the, but I don't go up there and check the box and just start saying words to this person with no reason behind it. They'd be like, dude, what are you saying?
Yes.
And why?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So with social, it becomes the same thing. Is you don't need to overthink it, but just the simplification of like, what's the point of this thing? I want to entertain somebody. I want to educate somebody. I want to teach somebody. I want to give them something valuable. Have something at the root of it. But if you're just checking the box of, I made the video just so I could say I made the video, and I talked about this thing just because, can't tell you why, then it's going to struggle.
It's going to struggle.
And so with you, it was such a fun exercise because when it was, what's the point at the end of it for this specific video, you're like, yeah, I guess I don't know what the point was. You were sharing a piece of information and I'm like, is this to recruit? Is it to educate? Is it to entertain? And it was like, it was just something that was made for the sake of making it. And so when you switched your stuff into like, oh, here's the point, that stuff starts to connect a lot more. And there's a whole nother lesson in delivery in there that we went over. But the big piece was, just taking that one extra step of like, what's in it for the person watching this? And there's this concept of like, we make free videos on the internet for people to watch, right?
Free.
They're not free. We're extracting the most valuable thing a person has, which is their time. And when you start viewing it that way, you start making more valuable content.
Well, that was just right now, like that. I never looked at it that way. It's like, how do I give you something valuable? I think Sharon says this. He's like, he has a podcast, like $10,000 or something like that, where he's like, I'm going to give you $10,000 of free advice. And that's really like a bold statement that only Sharon can get away with. But it's mindful. It's like, hey, look, I paid so that you don't have to, and I'm going to give you this information that I learned. I think he has like 8 coaches or something like that. But like, I think there's so many people out there that look at it, and me included, like, well, this is free, so you get what you paid for. Now, how do I change that? This is so impactful to me right now.
The biggest change you can possibly make is when you understand that the content's not for you, it's for them.
That was the hardest thing. I mean, there's times where I'm doing stories and it's really like, well, how do I make it about them? It's about a story of me, what I'm trying to give them an idea. It doesn't always have to be on the stories, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think overall, I think you're right. When you're posting like Reels and YouTubes and that sort of thing, you always have to put the person in front of who you want to watch it.
Well, and I'll push back on that, because even in stories, it's still about it's always about the viewer.
Okay.
So even when it's about you, it's about them. So give me an example of a story that would be about you and not about them.
I'm on vacation. I post a vacation because I'm like, hey, I'm on vacation. So that's, in case you're wondering,
connection. That's you showing a piece of yourself for us to create opportunities for me to say, I'm on there too, or you want to show me something beautiful and I want to share with you where I'm at. And that's how even stories become better, is like, okay, I'm on vacation. Is this for no reason? It's just for me to say I'm on vacation, or do I want to show people where I'm at?
Well, that's it. Like you,
right now, look how beautiful this golf course is.
We were so lucky, right? Yeah. So the other day you posted a video, and like it was, I don't know, there's a cabin or something that you go to, or I don't know if that's your house or your cabin, but you were showing it, and then I'm like, well, where is this? Because I want to go there, right? So that's essentially the reasoning I use. Like, hey, I happen to see this amazing place. Maybe other people might want to see it. But I don't position it that way sometimes, and so that's where I think most people have to get okay with saying, hey, this is where I'm at. Because I think that's how I get to know people, through their stories. That's how I really get
and that's
to
why
understand
it's for the people you're talking to. Like, that's the if you look at like the Kardashians, right? Their TV show, it's about them. It's just following their life. But it is very much for the audience. It's for our entertainment. It's for our pleasure. It's for us to look at something on the other end. Like if they just went about that without having any value to the person on the other screen, they wouldn't make it what it is today. But surface level, you look at like the Kardashian show is just about them being them. It's about us.
So it is, well, every time I see it, I'm thinking they're just like me.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So it just in that thought, right, is why they make it.
Yeah.
Because they're so easy to get along with or to understand. Such an amazing thing. And that's why they're mega famous.
And that's why some of these really big creators that create community and create connection, even the stuff that's about them somehow becomes about you on the other side of the screen. And so that'll be the difference when you watch someone's stories where it's like, why are you sharing this for no reason at all? Or is it a subtle change in the way you show you're on vacation? If you're going to take pictures of your food, why? Maybe it's a subtle change. And those things are what create connection and start to create this audience and create a really activated a group of people that follow you. Is I'm going to make this stuff for you. You're going to be better off by the end of this video.
All right, so if I'm hearing you right, there's a few things that you've said so far that I want to just recapture, right? Like I think authenticity is one of the most key things in getting your content and your marketing to be successful. The second thing is if you want to get past that next level, you have to be kind to yourself. And when you look at actually doing videos, right? And I think that's what we're talking about is how do you take, your phone, turn it around, and video yourself in a way that connects with people. What would you tell somebody that's terrified to do that today, but has a story to tell and has a product to sell? How do you get them to get over that hump in being comfortable with it?
The first step is just to do something simple where the stakes are really low. And so if you could pull your phone out and talk about anything that you feel comfortable talking about, just to get that first one out of the way, that's going to be that first step off the cliff. That's going to take so much of the fear out of the equation and open up a ton of doors for you to make the content you want to make. So step one is just find any way possible to hit record. Don't worry about the hook. Don't worry about the light. Don't worry about the audio. Just hit record so you could get that part out of the way. Because once that's gone, then you're going to start opening doors. You're going to be like, I didn't die. I made a video and I'm still here.
And most people actually get a lot of reaction from their first video anyway, like just out of the gates, because everybody's like, we're worried about the haters or the people that have something to say about it, but the cheerleaders are what we got to focus on, or the people that like love you for it and want to see more of it.
100%. Yeah. And that comes from that validation of making your first one and seeing like, okay, I didn't die. Some people actually liked it. Now I get to make the next one. Then you can start worrying about your equipment and your lighting and your audio and all these other things that are going to make your videos good. But I think the first step to get over is just make that first video, whatever that's going to be for you. And I think the easy tip, if someone's really terrified about talking to a camera, because it's an awkward feeling. And what's really crazy, again, why this is valid, why it's like okay to be afraid of a camera, is because our DNA did not build us to talk to inanimate objects. We've been on the earth for a very long time. Yeah. It is very awkward if I talk to this water bottle and start telling it about FHA loans. Right?
It is very weird.
It psychologically doesn't make sense. It's not. I
do way better on videos if somebody's in the room with me
100%.
Than when I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Because, and it's like you said something earlier today. You said, well, just if you're having a hard time with it, then pretend you're on a FaceTime.
Yeah.
Because then you feel like you're
talking to a person.
You're talking to a person, even though it's your phone.
Yeah, and that's the best tip I could give someone who's uncomfortable on camera is just don't picture it as a camera, because again, our DNA, it's hard to talk to inanimate objects. If you're good at talking to inanimate objects, something's wrong. You know what I mean? Like
just by you saying that, it almost like frees me for like why, like you connected the dots on why I feel the way that I do, uncomfortable when I do it. But now that I know that, it's easier to overcome.
Yes.
Because once I just couldn't connect those dots, but nobody said it. And all the people I've talked to, nobody's ever said it that way. So that's really powerful.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. That's, again, it kind of comes back to what we already said, which is give yourself some grace. It is hard and that's okay. And it does get easier, I promise. So good, man. So for the people that are listening that, there's a lot of people stuck, and they get stuck because, we were on a call today with a lot of people that would, if we were to talk to them, they would tell you that they were stuck. And we were talking to people who had were really good content. They have the video down, they have the audio down, they have, they have an idea of what a hook is, yet they don't get the reach that they want to. How do you help somebody like that? Because I really feel like when somebody gets connected with you, you have a way of pulling it out of them. What are the steps that somebody could take,
or the questions they could ask themselves to help them arrive where you would normally help them?
So there's a few things, because when you look at like trying to gain reach, once you're making content, there's some technical kind of black and white things that you can improve on, right? So that comes into the have better video quality, have better hooks, written hooks, whether you're using captions or not, don't put the music too loud. There's a lot of technical things that will help your videos do better, and that's going to improve the reach. But you have to ask yourself, like, why are those things helping the reach? And the answer to that is it makes your video more enjoyable to the person on the other side. And so there's a lot of things that we do that seem like hacks or tricks or whatever it is to try and make your video improve. All we're doing is making your video more enjoyable to watch for the person on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
So if that's the goal, then what else can we do to make this video more enjoyable for the person on the other side of the screen? So maybe we make the production value better, and we script it better, and we get more concise with our delivery. So all these things that seem like hacks at the root of it are really easy to get to, because if only we knew who our viewers were, it's us. What would I want to watch?
Yeah, agreed.
What would I want to listen to? Would I want to watch this video?
Yeah.
Do I think this is valuable? And so when I started making videos at the beginning, I didn't make them the way I do now. They were the very like 101 videos. I was, hey guys, my name's Trevor, talking about FHA loans or something. I'm like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
When I play it back for like my wife, I'm sitting there like, is this 2 hours long? How long is this video? It gets awkward to watch. What is she feeling? What is everybody else who's watching it?
So they're going to be nice to us.
Yeah.
Because, but the truth of the matter is the normal consumer doesn't know what an FHA is anyway.
Right.
Like, you say FHA, I don't, like, if I'm
No
a
clue.
normal consumer, what does that matter?
Yeah.
Right? So how do you make that so simplistic to the person that's on the other end? Because we know it too well.
Yeah.
And like for me, we'll ask Fabio. Like, Fabio, you're our target market. Who's the producer of the podcast. He's into media stuff, not into mortgages. But we'll ask him like, hey, does this make sense? He's like, I do not understand what you're saying. And it's like, okay, we need to make it more simplistic to capture that audience. But a lot of people miss that. And do you think that's a big misstep that mortgage loan officers make as they're creating content?
1000%. We try and boil the ocean when we make content. And if I say, we'll stick on this theme of like FHA loans, we need to cover everything. Yeah. Right? The PMI is this, but it's important to know that this is different than conventional because it's for the life of the loan. Unless you're putting 10% down, then something changes. And then if you have good credit, it could be good.
No, too much.
It's too much. So
just get the phone to ring.
Yes. And so the best way to do this is make that completely snackable. So instead of that being one video, it's 50 videos.
Yes.
Make one point that's very clear in the shortest amount of time possible, and your video will be better. That's the blueprint. And the other piece is they're talking the way that they think they should talk, not the way they actually talk.
Yeah, we saw that today.
Yep.
Like, I'm like, this bro never talks to me like that. And then but I do it this too. It's like newscaster all of a sudden, and that's not how I talk. Like, this is how I would talk to you.
Yep.
If we were having a beer, this is how I would be talking to you. But, when we get in front of the camera in the sense of I'm creating content, all of a sudden we're like Channel 4 News.
Yeah.
How do you get around that? Or how do you help somebody get around it?
There's a few different ways. Part of it, and it's experimenting. Because different people, different things work. Like you said, you love filming with somebody else in the room. I'm the same way. Some people get really awkward and terrified when somebody's in the room. The only way you know is to try both, right? So experiment. Like, what makes you feel comfortable? The goal is to feel comfortable. If you do, your video comes across comfortable. And so for me, that was just a lot of experimenting of like, okay, this style of shooting, whether it's I like having someone in the room or I like doing this interview section. For me, I played around with the idea of scripting. I've never written a script for a video ever.
Ever?
Yeah. I mean, I experimented with it at the beginning on the videos that you guys don't really see, the ones that are way further down.
Yeah.
And so I shouldn't say ever, but the videos that people have actually seen have not been scripted.
So I was watching a bunch of your videos over the last couple of days, knowing that we were going to do this. And one of the things I noticed you do, something that I have talked myself out of doing, and that's like you keep your background super similar in a lot of them. You wear almost the same thing in most of them, or it's the same kind of style. Yeah. It's a hat. And then I'm thinking, well, but his videos hit every time. And your lighting's perfect. The color looks amazing. The audio is like right on point. And then your messaging is super simple and super fast. Like, and it's really good. Like, I mean, I'm like, man, why can't I do videos like that? Like, I want to be able to do them. So for those of us that like have done videos for a long time and want to level up, what do you recommend in terms of the aesthetics of it? Like, the mics, how important is all that? Because I know that you take great, emphasis on this
Quality.
for your videos, on quality. Like,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
So my answer is probably going to surprise you, because I am someone who loves gear and I love making quality stuff. But I also think that becomes the biggest piece of friction, and also the thing that people hide behind most when it comes to creating videos.
So, meaning this video sucked because it wasn't perfect, the lighting.
Yeah.
Or, it's, again, I'm detaching myself from accountability.
Yeah. I want to shoot today, but I got to set up my light, and I got to get the mic, and I got to set my camera up. And then once I film it, I got to get the memory card off there and dump it on the computer and edit it. And so for me, that was my art form. And you got to remember, when I started making videos for Instagram, this was in 2019, before anyone was making videos on Instagram. And so the differentiator was the quality. You would see a bunch of iPhone shot videos, and then all of a sudden this really highly produced one came up. And that was the thing that made me different. And that was my art form that I took a lot of pride in. So that was one of the things that separated me. Now it's a little bit more of a novel, like everybody has videographers, and it's really easy to get highly produced stuff on Instagram, where in the past I had to do some work to get that to post, right? And so when I started, it's a little bit different than now, because I built my stuff off of being different because of quality, where now we know authentic, non-produced, low-produced content hits. And so I don't think it's necessary. If it's something you love and you enjoy, like, great. But if it's an excuse of, I'm not shooting because I don't have the right mic,
that's it. Yeah,
I need a video person.
I'll say that to myself, like, oh, well, I don't have like my video person here that has lighting and has everything. And now all I want to do is just my phone's video. Like, I'm just like, I just want to do it on my phone and make it super simple. What do you watch? Like, for you yourself, like when you're consuming, are there a few people in the industry that you're like you watch because they entertain you, or they have good information, or they're leveling up? Who do you like? Who do you enjoy watching?
I'm going to be honest. I do not watch a lot of industry content. Like, I watch none.
None?
No.
Zero?
Yeah, zero.
Okay.
And I think out of the gate, that's
Is it because it's so boring?
It's because it's so boring. Like, I don't really care. You know what I mean? And it's stuff that I know. It gets repetitive. It feels redundant. And the other thing was, like, I really enjoy drawing inspiration from people that aren't in mortgage or aren't in finance or aren't in those. So there's a lot of vloggers that I really enjoyed watching that have nothing to do with the industry that we're in. And I like watching really cool filmmaking videos and different editing styles. And so those were things that I'd watch, and those influence would rub off on how I made my videos. And it's trying to stay ahead of the curve and do something different that's true to me.
Well, so then how does one get to you? Like, meaning, how does a person do something so innovative with their content that it captures your attention? Is it just stay away from all mortgage stuff altogether? Like, meaning, like that video you saw, you were like, I can't say anything wrong with this because it had nothing to do with mortgage, but everything to do with mortgage.
Yes.
So is that how is that what people should be doing, is embracing who they are as a person and sharing that?
Yes. And try and experiment with new things. And mortgage is still a little bit behind the curve. We're starting to see it in real estate. You'll see these realtors that are trying really creative things of how they're showing houses, right? Like, there's that one lady whose video blew up of her playing hide and go seek in her house.
I didn't see it, but that sounds amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that was the way she showed the property.
That's how she showed the property.
And there's that one millennial dude that, like, runs through the house dancing. And there's, so there's all these, like, kind of creative ways. That's the stuff that catches my attention. But if I see the same hook, problem, solution about a product or an offering that we have in mortgage, I don't think there's any way of doing that that's going to stop my thumb from scrolling, unless it's something wildly different. And so that could be in the way it's shot, that could be the way it's delivered, it could be you're whispering into the mic, it could be yelling, you could be outside,
that's it.
There's a million ways to do it. But no one does it.
That's creativity.
Like,
so you talked about that today. And by the way, I meant to say this, like, the other piece of what you've done is you've now started speaking, like, and getting on stages. And so, I know we're jamming on, like, tactical things that people can do, but back to that, that's a breakthrough in itself. Like, when did you look at it and say, get over the hump of feeling confident in yourself to say, okay, well, I'm doing the content, I'm doing marketing, how do I get on stages and really impact people live? How did that come around?
It was, it all kind of started with Forward, which was, where I got to coach and teach, and we got to do those calls where we're on calls with, 300 to 500 people regularly where we're teaching them about content. And so I got really comfortable speaking in front of people because I would do it every single week. Even though it was virtual, it was still the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it made me realize, like, one of my biggest passions and the thing I love most is teaching and helping people.
Yeah, you said this earlier, like you were a cheerleader with your family. You become, this person of encouragement in the community that we're in the mortgage community, and people know you for that. And now you get to do it live, you know, and I think you're going to be hitting a ton of stages, over the next year. Do you have a goal on that, by the way?
To hit more of them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I'm going to help you with that one way or another. So let's keep jamming on this. I want to know from you, what is the next phase for you when you look at LinkSpot and where you want to take it, and tell us about that, because like you and I were walking and you were like, well, you know what LinkSpot is? And I was like, well, walk me through it again, because I wasn't really crystal on it, but tell the audience what you're doing, because I think that this is something that has to be a part of loan officers' arsenal if they're going to do content. And I'll tell you why. You know Theoni, right? I mean, she blew up on TikTok, blew up on Instagram, and then, when we did the podcast, her one breakthrough moment was when I blew up, I wasn't prepared for the onslaught of leads that I was going to get. And I'm like, Theoni, that's like the best thing that could happen. She's like, no, but I'm serious. I didn't have the back end to support me in it. And you've created something for people that they are going to need in their arsenal. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I don't think you need to be Theoni. I don't think you need this massive audience and this massive amount of leads to benefit from having a form of capturing leads. Mm-hmm. And so basically with consumers, there's this lead funnel they go through. They go from awareness, which is they know you exist now, whether that's through content, whether it's through cold mail, whatever form you do to create awareness that you exist. All of us do it.
Yep.
That's stage one. Then it goes into capture, which is now how do I capture that lead's information so I know they exist. They know I exist. I need to know they do.
And real quickly, I'm going to stop you there. That needs to come from all forms.
Yes.
We met people here at this event. That needs to go into my database and somehow, like every person's a contact until they become a lead, right?
Yep.
And you have a platform that allows us to do this.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me more. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. Yeah. So first step is awareness.
Yep.
Then we capture. Then we nurture. Then we convert.
Okay.
So most people in the mortgage industry go straight from awareness into convert. Mm-hmm. We miss the whole phase. For a lot of loan officers, the way they capture leads information is through a loan application. That's the very bottom of the funnel.
Well, this is where I think I totally agree with you, but I think one of the hardest things for loan officers, especially in the game of creating content and then capturing that person that engaged with your content, is to know that they're so early in the process that there's a nurture phase that has to happen, because they didn't just get brought to you by a realtor that said this person's ready to go.
Yeah.
They don't even have a realtor yet.
Yeah.
And so there is a nurture process, and you've created this. You've created this process for people. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, you're good. So step one is do something to make people know you exist. Okay, that could be content. That could be any form of awareness. Second stage, let's capture that attention now. So these are things like lead magnets. These are different funnels. These are forms. These are quizzes. Some way of capturing that person's information. Now that we have this information, we need to nurture them. And this isn't generic. This isn't drips. This is something where you can actually nurture these people based on the information that you capture on them. So one of my favorite ways of doing this that we do on LinkSpot is quizzes. And this is kind of made the thing that made Quicken Loans, is in 3 minutes, see what kind of situation you're in. How much money do you have? Are you buying a primary? What's your credit, income, assets? Do you own a house? When are you looking to buy? Information that makes it like the hottest lead we can possibly have.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? They love it because it's beneficial for them to see what
I get a chance to talk about myself.
Exactly.
Right? Like, that's amazing, yes.
And then we get data that we can now create campaigns around. So now I know that you're self-employed. I'm not going to send you emails about W-2. I'm going to send you emails about self-employed. You tell me you have bad credit, I'll send you credit repair campaigns, right? I'm not going to send you credit repair when you already told me you have good credit. So the more data we have, then we can effectively nurture, and then we're able to nurture them from that phase of being a lead and then convert them into being a deal.
I love that. That is amazing. So how does, for the people that are using this, how has this changed their business? I mean, what has this impact had for your clients?
Yeah, I think the question I ask people all the time is, how easy is it for someone to work with you? And the answer is typically not very easy.
Okay.
Right? Like, what's the link in your bio look like? Is it optimized where if I see one of your videos and it's good, and
yours
how
is
do I
so
work
dialed
with
in. Yours, by the way, is so dialed in.
Thank you.
And that's LinkSpot, right?
That's on LinkSpot, yeah.
So if you go to your Instagram
Yeah.
and you go to the link that's there in your bio, that gives people an opportunity to feel what their client would feel like if they had LinkSpot.
Absolutely.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
So how does somebody work with you? Like, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, and are you asking me directly or just?
I'm asking you directly,
Yeah.
like how for the audience, because
okay.
there's
Yeah,
people
yeah.
listening that want to know, like, okay, well, tell me more about this LinkSpot.
Yeah.
Let me check it out.
Instagram's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
Yep. And
what's your
again,
handle?
my link in bio in there has everything you need. Trev York at TREVYORK.
Rock and roll, man.
Yep.
So Trevor, I mean, seriously, dude, like we've been wanting to do this for a long time. I think you're probably the most authentic person in the industry that's truly there to help people. And like I said earlier, we're in a hater culture, man, and I get none of those vibes from you ever. You're just helping people left and right. You've helped me tremendously. And I hope that you and I continue to collaborate on more things. There's so many speaking events that are coming up that I want to get you linked into.
Yep.
But if anybody who's listening wants to connect with Trevor, hit him up on his DMs. But I think LinkSpot is probably one of the best ways for you to level up your career. And do you help people? Like, I know, you were helping people with Forward. How do people get coaching from you? Are you doing anything like that? Is this something that you're going to be looking at next?
Yeah, that is something in 2025. I have a few people I'm working with more one-to-one for creative consulting. And
that's good.
So if you're someone that wants that, just shoot me a message and we'll get that set up.
Rock and roll, man.
Can I just say one thing too about you?
Yeah, please.
Because I'm so excited that we finally got to do this. Because when I met you back in 2020, that was when I was still getting to know the industry, right? And you're a hitter, and I knew that of you, and I'd heard people talk about you. And when I got to meet you, it was actually at the very first Forward event. You and Alec. I'm like, man, I love this guy. Like this is such a cool.
Did I have long hair back then?
You did have long hair, man. You had long hair. We were talking about watches.
Oh, that's
and
right.
I'm like, man, this is the type of guy that I want to align myself with in this
very
industry.
cool, man.
And I wanted, my goal was I want people to look at me the way I was looking at you at that time. Because people were like, oh, man, that's Chris. This is what he does. And then when I meet you, you're just the most stand-up guy.
Oh, thank you, man.
As I've gotten to know you over the last 5 years, and this podcast is a perfect testament to that, your ambition to help people in our industry level up is unmatched, and it's something that's rare, and I really appreciate everything you do, not just for your people, but just for the whole community of people in lending, because you are making a change and you're doing stuff different and you're impacting people, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful to be on this podcast and hopefully be a part of helping more loan officers break through and anybody break through.
Hell yeah, man. Look, it's hard for me to hear that because I don't necessarily look at myself the way you see me, and I need to do more of that. Worthiness is probably one of the biggest things that I think, holds us back in a lot of ways from even breaking through. So thank you. I mean, I really do have to accept what you're saying, and I appreciate it more than anything. So you being here, you doing this live with me in this amazing weather. For those of you that are listening, you have no idea, but they asked us to shut down this podcast a couple of times. We're getting kicked out of this hotel, but this was fun. This was fun to do. We just completely ignored them and kept going. So, listen, if you liked this podcast, go in and subscribe. Take a snapshot of it and post it, tag Trevor, tag me. But we appreciate you guys for staying this long and listening, and stay tuned for the next breakthrough.